Go forth, Galvin. May you be unharmed.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Ghostly French Toast, and today we're doing a Demon Souls video. Since I got a PS5, I've been wanting, this is probably one of my favorite bosses in Demon Souls Remake. So enough talking around, let's dive on in. In the church and the lore of Demon Souls, it's sort of like the Way of Light. What the church does, it worships this godlike entity in order to get miracles, to basically become powerful entities. And I actually sort of have a theory that I'll discuss later on about who this entity is. But it's good that I talk about what the church is, because Maiden, Astraea, and Vinland are both from the church. They're both miracle worshippers. The church basically wants to as all churches do, all religions as a whole, they want to spread their religion around the world and make it known, make it everyone to worship it, because personally, if you have everyone worshipping a single religion, you can have a ton of power. And I feel like that's personally what the leaders of the church were doing. Something to take note of. One of the talismans in Demon Souls, there's two talismans. There's a talisman of the gods and the talisman of the beast. The talisman of the beast is basically, it basically has a depiction on it of this great mouth-like entity, like a weird scribbly circle. We'll discuss this later. I'm just trying to talk as much as I can about what the religion, the church is, to give some background info. So, the church basically wants to make everything pure. So, they heard about this place called the Valley of Defilement. And, of course, as any church would want to be, they wanted to bring the words of God. So they sent a group of preachers and knights to basically go spread the word of God and try to cleanse the Valley of Defilement. But, as we know, this went horribly, and the Valley of Defilement is still a Valley of Defilement, of ruins. And we learned from the old lady in the swamp that the Valley of Defilement was actually pretty nice before she came along, Maiden, Astraea, and Vinland and their group of knights came along. But the reason to say this is wrong, because we know that the old lady is very jealous of Maiden, Astraea, because before Maiden, Astraea came along, all the guys were like, ooh, the old lady's pretty nice. She was basically what every guy dreamed of in the swamp. But since Maiden, Astraea came along, all the guys and all the people started to worship Maiden, Astraea as this godlike entity. So what happened when Maiden, Astraea, and Garl and their group of knights came along? So once they got into the Valley of Defilement and got deeper and deeper into the Valley of Defilement, they started to realize that God isn't good. And they're like, hey, God, if you were like an all good entity, why does the Valley of Defilement exist? And we learned in some of the preachers' dialogues in game that even God may not want to be here. It may be like hell itself. So once Maiden, Astraea, and Garl and the group of knights knew what happened, it was mostly Maiden, Astraea, and Garl. They basically tried their best to heal people in the swamp itself, but we know that didn't go well. But once the outbreak of the mist and the old one in Baltaria basically broke out, the mist basically engulfed the swamp. But instead of basically rejecting it, they embraced it. They embraced basically the mist, and this is something really cool, because if you look at all the other demons like Penetrator, Tower Knight, Phalanx, Old King Durant, not Old King Durant, False King Alliance, sorry. Those two are just very similar names, and they get confused sometimes. We see that they both changed, all of them, all four of them, and all the other ones changed so much. And they sacrificed themselves in order for the mist to happen. Mostly False King Alliance, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Maiden, Astraea, but with Maiden, Astraea, we see the first successful evolution of humans. Because we see that she didn't really change because of the mist, and we know that she accepted the mist itself. But everyone in her knights, except for Vinland, all died because of the mist, because I personally believe they still believed there was God, and the reason that Maiden, Astraea, and Garl of Vinland basically didn't die was because they basically like, hey, this isn't good, and God doesn't really exist. So that's something to take note of. Now let's talk about Maiden, Astraea, and Garl of Vinland. Maiden, Astraea is basically a saint in the church who basically found this ring at a very young age, that basically, the ring of devout prayer, and that basically allowed her to basically rise in the ranks of the church, because everyone in the church thought, hey, she found the ring of God, and so she should be the one who has power in this church. So she rose up the ranks, and as we know, she was sent to the Valley of Fire. Garvin was basically came from a very wealthy family in the church, and he was a very good knight in the church, because we see with Grant's legendary weapon for the church, and we don't know the relationship that Maiden, Astraea, and Garl of Vinland had with each other, but they must have had friends or a loving relationship. So once the church found out about Maiden, Astraea becoming a demon, they sent knights, but to the Valley of Defilement to make sure it's true, but none returned, because they're either killed by the Valley of Defilement itself, all the people in the Valley of Defilement, all the infected, or they couldn't even make it because the poison swamp killed them. We see the Moonlight Greatsword, one of a former knight. We see above the Leechmonger, a fallen knight as well. And all these fallen knights were probably killed by the people of the swamp, and basically their souls were sacrificed to Maiden, Astraea to basically keep them going. Let Maiden, Astraea feed the old one. And now let's discuss the God in this world. I believe the church worships the old one, just because we know that sorcery is hailed from the old one, but we know from the saints in the Nexus that once the old mist came, their miracles got more powerful. So that kind of implies that the old one has some power in the church. The old one is involved with some religion in the church, and we see on the Beast Talisman that it has a depiction of the old one. So I just thought that was an interesting theory. Yeah, I got a PS5, and I'm like, I've been playing Demon's Souls, Bloodborne, all those kinds of games. I'm really excited to make some more lore videos, because Demon's Souls is probably one of my favorite Souls games, to be honest. I have to play Sekiro after this, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. See you next time. Go see French Toast. Bye.